obviously a very bright guy. He taught denazification classes in World War II to the Nazi youths in Germany, and then, as was mentioned, he was in the Korean War. He had some schooling. He was at
the University of Chicago. He transferred from the University of Chicago.
It was like a couple of years or something like that. University of Chicago. So he had some, in addition to high school, he had some higher education as well.
He had also gone to school in Fayetteville. This was during his service. So part of his military experience, he was starting his college education then. So again, when you read his letters, it was obvious to me that this is someone who, he's very eloquent, but he was very well prepared and, you know, just would have been an awesome student, I believe.
The arguments he makes are so compelling, you know, and you could tell he was actually attempting to appeal to the white community. He was reaching his hand out and writing his letters.
But he came back home to Mississippi because his stepfather died and his mother needed help at the chicken farm. So that's why he came back, and he wanted to finish his education here.
You didn't want to have to go all the way to
Alcorn
or wherever. Yeah, so.
Any indication of a maybe possible relationship or James Meredith being exposed to what he was doing? Because one interesting thing about Meredith is that there's background in the military. Meredith has always been kind of characterized as somebody who came with his ID himself. And he did his own blog and this is something he took on. So, but clearly, Kennard, by writing into the newspaper, put this whole concept out there throughout the state.
I'll let Rebecca address that.
Well, we have an interview in our Center for Oral History at USM, which is an excellent collection, has thousands of interviews. And James Meredith is actually on record saying that he didn't want to end up being like Clyde Kennard. So he mentions that he knows of the Kennard case, and for that reason, when Meredith was trying to integrate here, he made sure to publicize it, especially with government officials, so that he thought that Kennard had been too forgiving and thought that people would, you know, he kind of believed in the goodness of the people that he appealed to, including McCain. And that backfired on Clyde Kennard to the point where he was framed twice and then denied health care in Parchman prison.
And the other one to remember too, before this even, was Medgar Evers. Applied to go to law school right here.
Oh, we have a
And that was
connection
in
there.
54, before he became field secretary of the NAACP in Mississippi. So.
Why do you think Meredith is, up to this point, history has made him more of a recognizable figure than Kennard? Was it because he actually did get accepted, or because of maybe some of the outward physical activities that took place?
Can I weigh in as a
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of it had to do with the publicity
Yeah.
surrounding the
So.
integration attempt. Also, the very important federal versus state showdown that took place all around, James Meredith's attempts to integrate here.
And Lauren and I looked at the Student Prints, which is a student newspaper, coverage of just racial issues being covered on campus. And the integration of Ole Miss is mentioned a lot in those. That was most of the conversations about race centered around what was happening in Oxford, and that's not going to happen here. You know, sort of the culture there that this is, you know, we're above that kind of cultural tradition. So I think even though that happened before, you know, the integration of Ole Miss, I think Mississippi Southern College at the time, USM, just has a sort of different culture, perception. It's not the actual culture. There's a perception that it's a little more progressive and open to things. And I think that perception was key for them to not be seen
But that was Kennard's also. That was
Watching
his.
my word.
That was his whole goal, though. He's on record as saying that, oh, they're not going to be that bad.
Yeah.
It's not going to be bad. Of course they're going to let me in, because he was a firm believer in democracy. He was his letters, he makes very eloquent, very logical, passionate arguments as to, what are his rights as a citizen. So again, with Brown versus Board of Education passing the year before, he firmly believed. I don't think he's idealistic. He was just a firm believer in it, because he was also affiliated with the NAACP. So this wasn't a political move for him. This was just a personal commitment that he wanted to fulfill his education. And so I think maybe that has something to do with it, with Meredith being backed by the NAACP and other groups in ways that Clyde Kennard could have been, but he chosen not to.
He was not as public. He had the support. He was
did have
close
support.
friends with Meg Revers and things like that. But he insisted he wasn't being supported by the NAACP in his application, because he felt like that would hurt him, even though really he was kind of being quietly supported.
And one other thing is Dr. Lucas has said over and over that they were waiting for Ole Miss to do it first. That there was something about the flagship University of Ole Miss, and that Southern Miss was waiting. Now this is what Dr. Lucas has said, but that there might have been a way in which people looked to Ole Miss as the main university in Mississippi as well. So.
And by the way, just because I love historical trivia, Meredith was not the first African American to attend Ole Miss, by the way. Does everybody know this? Everybody? Okay. Everybody already knows this? Okay.
I think we had a hand up here.
Do you know of others who might have applied but was more passive and did not receive the same treatment that he did?
At Southern?
I don't know of anyone else at Southern.
Well, we have a colleague who has been working, Dr. Curtis Austin, who was a professor of history at
That's right.
Southern. He has been doing some longstanding research as well on it, and according to him, that there were other attempts, but they may have been by African Americans who were light enough to
Light
pass.
skin, yeah, they weren't passing. They were passing as white.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he didn't. When it came to the form, you had to put race in. I think he put white. I think, and he passed essentially, as they call it back then. Right.
He didn't go public while he was down there.
Right.
Exactly. No, he didn't go
Right.
public. In fact, I think the Jet Magazine article didn't run until Meredith got admitted. I think that was when it ran.
He was smart.
Charlie.
During their Mississippi editors in that time, those letters in Martin.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know.
I was surprised to find them in the ways, and again, it works so well that we have these
You know
journalists.
Kathleen?
Yeah, the Hederman
The
family
Hedermans owned
did.
it.
That's what made it so
They-
remarkable.
Yeah, I guess it was a Hederman family, which kind of surprising, but you have to, if I'm guessing, I'd credit the editor, you know what I mean? Because the Clarion Ledger back then wouldn't have run those letters. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, they just wouldn't have seen the light of day. Them or the Jackson Daily News, they would have immediately seen the bottom of a trash can. So,
What was the pedal paper?
yeah, Kathleen. What's that?
It's on his gravestone.
It's just a military.
Military,
the
what,
dates.
Korean War?
Yeah, he was a Korean War veteran, so it's just a military headstone, which again says a lot about how his legacy.
Yeah.
Oh,
That,
it was on there.
that was probably the outfit you follow what I'm saying, the unit he was with.
That's unusual that they put the state in my state. I just thought that was
Yeah, it's interesting.
big New Jersey.
Yeah, yeah.
That little details.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Maybe wonder, Bobby?
I don't know. I'm new military. I don't know why it said Jersey on there, but I did notice that. Yeah.
Question about the production of the documentary. How difficult was it to get people to talk and open up from the official point of view? In other words, was that a challenge?
I can't answer that, but I'm sure that the team had the interviews lined up for us, so they could speak to that.
Except for the interview with Miss Damer.
And
Yeah. I think that our 2-year commitment helped build a strong foundation, so people were aware of the work that we were doing. So like prior to this documentary, we hosted a lecture series where each of us featured our specific area of expertise, research area, and brought in guest lecturers to kind of really hone in on our particular area. And so people were aware of the story that we were trying to tell and the work that we were trying to do. And I think that we did a really good job of contextualizing it and really a history of students in particular on Southern Miss's campus really drawing attention to Kennard's story and how important it is. So I think contextualizing in that lineage helped set up these interviews. And then our purpose for this, and I know Sharita can talk more about this, is that we really wanted this film to be something that students can see on their way into the institution to learn about Clyde Kennard as a part of USM history. And so in this first part of the project, I think our context and the purpose helped get access to Dr. Holloway, Dr. Lucas, and others who were more willing to open up. And I know Rebecca can also talk about reaching into like Mary Magdalene Church and Kennard's church family. I think that may have been a challenge in its own right.
People wanted to talk, you
Yeah.
know, because we talk about Clyde Kennard on campus in our respective courses, you know, if we decide to, but a lot of opportunities are not there to tell the story, and a lot of people just wanted to tell what they knew about him. So,
And as Lauren mentioned, the lecture series that we did spring 2016 actually brought out several of those interviews that were on there. They were in the audience. They said that they were friends of Clyde Kennard. They had gone to churches. So the interviews actually came to us after we did the lecture series. And there were several interviews. Again, we had many that we had to edit out.
a lot.
But also, Rebecca may want to speak more about the Lucas interview, because that was a big deal for us to get that one.
Glad you got him to talk.
Yes.
yeah, we left them.
Both of them.
She's selling herself short because.
Yeah, Al did the interview.
she
I
did
set up
the
the interview. He said that he was interested in talking and wanted to talk, and he's still very much a presence on campus. And we just put up a historical marker also honoring Clyde Kennard, and he was there as well. And so, you know, we reached out and he was there, but Al did the interview.
She's a really great. She pulls it out. I mean, in the rough cuts, we're like, wow, she got that on tape. So it was good.
We said that several times as when we finished up with Dr. Lucas, is that he wouldn't stop talking, and we were like, this is awesome. Hold on, can you stop there so I can change the tape? I mean, he just kept wanting to talk, and I was like, this is great. Yeah.
But I think also his friends were so happy to talk about him and his character and his contribution to the community and to the university and opening doors. So I think it was about time for them, well over time. And so I think they were very honored to talk about him. In fact, when we premiered it in Hattiesburg, they wanted more. They were like, this should be, and I think, Jerry, you said this should be a full-length feature film. And I'm like, yeah, if we can get funding, that would be great.
It takes a lot of money.
I mean, there's so much more, you know, as you well know, there's so much more to the story, like the fact that the Sovereignty Commission basically recruited all these presidents of black universities, which understandably were under the gun. I mean, they were, you know, the white power structure was funding their position. So, I mean, it's not like they had an option. And so here they are trying to get Kennard, no, you don't need to go. Here, come to our institution, and you don't need to go to Southern. And, you know, they kind of trying to get him to not apply to Southern. It was really fascinating, all the steps they took to keep him out. Yeah, I mean, involved the governor. It would involve the governor too. The governor was involved in all that.
They were going to promise a black college in the area, right? And in exchange for help.
Yep.
To get him not to go.
Right.
Dr.
Exactly.
Hall? Dr. Cole?
Well,
93?
93.
93 is when Kennard's name got added, right? And it was already Washington, I think, at that
But do you
point.
want to talk about your reporting for that?
Whatever you want me to talk about. I don't know.
Well,
Go ahead.
I will say with that, there was a big student movement on
Yeah, the
campus
students,
of the African American Student Organization that
Think of her
really, and we were able to talk to Reva Brown, who was the first black student editor of the Student Prince and also publisher of an alternative student newspaper, The Unheard Word, on campus in the 90s. But the black students on campus at that
They
time
definitely-
were
They
made
pushed
a
for
lot
it.
of noise and were crucial in really pushing efforts to recognize Clyde Kennard and get his name added. And there are lists of other initiatives that, for example, the Clyde Kennard Scholarship that was named in 2014 was on that list of initiative, or really demands that the students presented to Dr. Lucas at that time.
Right.
Is there a plaque so someone walking past?
There is.
It is
There
now.
is.
Have a-
Now there
It
is.
is now.
You know the civil
As of
rights
a month
monuments
ago.
that they have around the state? Have you seen these? Like
It's part of the
Emmett Till,
Mississippi.
and you've got one here, right? You've got
a
one.
Freedom
It's part of
Trail
the Freedom
marker.
Trail.
Yeah.
So it's like that. They've got one of those Freedom
Yeah,
Trail
it was
markers.
just
It was just
dedicated.
recently dedicated on
Yeah, they just
February.
did it. No.
Like a month
February
ago.
2nd, it was to kick off for the Black History Month celebration. So the way we've looked at it, again, our topic for our research topic is the measure of progress. So it came about, we were thinking that, there's so many civil rights anniversaries over the last 5 or 6 years that's just been ticking off, 50 years since this, 50 years since that. And so we've been looking at that progression of time to see how also in the Clyde Kennard case, interest in him and activism sparked by his case have come in waves as well. So again, the 1990s was a big push with the active body of African American students organizations. And then also another big wave that led to part of the exoneration just a few years ago. Now the Mississippi Freedom Trail marker, that wasn't student-led, that's state-led, but now we also are witnessing, thankfully, another wave of student activism to demand even more of recognition for Clyde Kennard's work. So we're honored to do the research part, to teach about it, but we're even more proud that, students are doing their part. They're speaking up to say this is what we want to see more happen.
But Sharita, the students are doing what now?
They're speaking up now. Just recently, was it the SGA?
Yeah, SGA, they passed a resolution to admit Kennard as a student, to have him recognized to be admitted as a student. I was shocked. I got an email from a student I had taught, and he happened to be a part of SGA and had come to our programs, and they'd been inspired, and he wrote the resolution, and it unanimously passed last week, I think.
Just recently, it's
Yeah,
on
just
YouTube.
That's excellent. That's great.
So we're hoping that the more we bring attention to it in our teaching and our research, that again, that the students are engaged in this process. Because to me, that's the best way to really secure his legacy, to see that here's someone who wasn't allowed to be a student, and now you have the student body who are really, really standing on him and pushing his legacy forward.
What about the possibility of him being, like at the high school level? I'm thinking as well. Well, I'm thinking Hattiesburg High School, or him. He may well already be taught there, but I just wondered if there's.
There is that project that his colleague in history, Kevin Green,
Oh, yes.
the
Yeah, I know
Cold
Kevin.
Case project that they've started working on at Hattiesburg High. And I can't talk specifically if there's a specific area that focuses on Clyde Kennard, but I know that it has been a part of the narrative as to what to be included in whatever curriculum or programming. And I know that a couple of us have spoken at Black History programs at both the middle school and high school in the Hattiesburg Public School District. And we are always deliberate in mentioning Mr. Kennard's name in the Hattiesburg and Forest County community as well.
Excellent.
couple of our partners, community partners, were the African American Military History Museum
Yep.
and the upcoming Civil Rights Museum that will be opening at the Eureka School, which was the historically all-black high school. Because those are our community partners, that they are also engaged in preserving his story, his legacy, and promoting it as an educational resource as well. So again, we're starting to see some traction that are really, really good signs.
Considering his, early death, how do you all think that shaped the reception of the two women who did later integrate or did it? I would say, considering, because the part of the tragedy of his death.
Right.
So soon after and right before these other two women are admitted, do you all think that shaped their treatment?
I don't know if
I don't.
it shaped their treatment. It's interesting though, because he and Medgar Evers died like within a couple of weeks apart. And so there's certainly a national attention on Medgar Evers' life, and I think maybe Mr. Kennard was kind of overshadowed by that, with the exception of the local level. And then for the two students to be to integrate it just a couple of years after that. Again, progressively you see things I think that were deliberately timed in such a way, and at least one of those students, Relani Branch, again affiliated with and well supported by the NAACP. So it's as if Clyde Kennard, said he wanted to do it on his own, and we saw what happened. And so then they came back with that second wave of it. But in terms of their relationship, and we've talked to Ms. Branch extensively about him, but she never, said anything about how that affected their experience.
It was quiet. There's actually one little art, I've called an article, but it's actually just a little note from Dr. McCain, who was president at the time, saying that these two ladies would be admitted. We're going to be on our best behavior, perception. We're going to be cool. We're not going to, like those people in Oxford. And everybody followed suit, and that was it. That's the only published account of the integration of the university.
In the student newspaper.
In the student newspaper, sorry.
Dr. Cole?
Were there interesting records from the judicial record from the court proceedings that indicated railroaded or
That indicated what?
Railroaded.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Sovereignty Commission records, if you read the ones when he tried to apply and got arrested for illegal liquor, possession of illegal liquor, I mean, the Sovereignty Commission records themselves say he was railroaded, that the liquor was planted in his car. One of the constables drove his car and then claimed he heard something rattling, and then all of a sudden, there he was, a bottle of liquor, which, by the way, Clyde was a teetotaler. He didn't drink at all. And so they thought that would dissuade him, but it was only a misdemeanor. And so with regard to the second one, I went, the Damer family first met with, I'm trying to remember the guy's name anyway, but Johnny Roberts. Johnny Roberts was the guy who was the quote unquote admitted thief, okay? So Clyde Kennard got convicted by the testimony of Johnny Roberts, and this is an excerpt from that testimony. This will give you an idea of what it read like, why I was so upset about it. He's testifying, and Johnny Roberts gets up and said, yeah, and I left the door open, so that I could, on Saturday night, so that I could, get this chicken feed. And the prosecutor literally says, Johnny, don't you mean Friday night? And Johnny's like, yeah, Friday night. So it was like obviously horribly coached, but and so he got convicted. So Johnny Roberts met first with the Damer family. I decided to dive back into the case. I'd written about it in '91, and nothing ever happened other than the recognition of Kennard, which the students were responsible for. But then in 2005, I wrote about, kind of revisited that. Johnny Roberts met with the Damer family, and then met with me, and basically said Clyde did nothing illegal. So he admitted that, it was all a put up, and he was railroaded. So that's the proof that we have for that. And so, interestingly, a bit of trivia, the judge that tossed the conviction out was also the prosecutor in the Vernon Damer case, Judge Helford. So anyway.
But it took the jury 10 minutes to convict.
Yeah, and Medgar Evers sounded off about it, and then he got cited for contempt by the judge. He was not even not even present. And he got cited for contempt because he spoke out. It was absolutely ridiculous. That actually finally got thrown out. But
Okay. Well, thank you.